Geoffrey Chaucer is widely regarded as the father of English literature, a title earned through his profound contributions to the development of the English language and literary tradition. Living in the 14th century, a period of significant political, social, and cultural transformations in England, Chaucer managed to capture the complexities of his time through his poetry and storytelling. His most famous work, The Canterbury Tales, remains a cornerstone of English literature, offering a rich portrayal of medieval society through its diverse characters and engaging narratives. This dissertation explores the life, works, and enduring legacy of Chaucer, shedding light on his literary genius and historical importance. Born into a world where Latin and French dominated literature and scholarly discourse, Chaucer played a crucial role in legitimizing Middle English as a language of artistic expression. His writings, marked by wit, social criticism, and innovative storytelling, reflect the transition from feudalism to a more complex and dynamic society. By writing in the vernacular, he not only made literature accessible to a broader audience, but also laid the groundwork for the future of English poetry and prose. His influence on later poets, including William Shakespeare and John Dryden, underscores his lasting impact on literary history. This dissertation is structured to provide a comprehensive understanding of Chaucer's life and work. It begins by exploring his early years, providing insight into the cultural and historical context in which he was born. His career in public service, which greatly influenced his literary output, is examined in detail, illustrating how his experiences as a courtier and diplomat shaped his storytelling. Following this, the dissertation delves into his early literary influences, tracing how his exposure to French, Italian, and classical literature enriched his poetic style. A significant portion of this dissertation is dedicated to analyzing the Canterbury Tales, Chaucer's magnum opus. This collection of stories, framed within the journey of a diverse group of pilgrims, presents a vivid and satirical depiction of medieval English society. The text's themes, narrative techniques, and linguistic innovations are explored to highlight Chaucer's contribution to the evolution of English literature. Additionally, attention is given to his other works, such as Troilus and Chryside, the Book of the Duchess, and the Parliament of Fowls, which further showcase his literary prowess. Another important aspect of Chaucer's work is his mastery of language and style. Through his use of Middle English, he not only challenged the dominance of Latin and French, but also created a poetic form that was uniquely English. His use of iambic pentameter, characterization, and humor set new standards for English literature. This dissertation examines these linguistic innovations, demonstrating how Chaucer's influence extended beyond storytelling to the very structure and rhythm of English poetry. Despite the passage of over 6 centuries since his death, Chaucer's work continues to be studied, adapted, and appreciated worldwide. His insights into human nature, society, and morality remain relevant, making him a timeless figure in literature. This dissertation also explores the reception of his work in different historical periods, from the early admiration of his contemporaries to the revival of interest during the Renaissance and beyond. Chaucer's later years, including his final writings and his death, provide further insight into his legacy. Unlike many medieval writers whose works were forgotten over time, Chaucer's reputation only grew stronger after his passing. The fact that he was the first writer to be buried in Westminster Abbey's Poets' Corner is a testament to his literary stature. His influence on English poetry and storytelling techniques has inspired generations of writers, solidifying his position as one of the most significant figures in literary history. Beyond the academic study of his works, Chaucer's characters and themes continue to influence modern literature, theater, and film. Adaptations and retellings of the Canterbury Tales demonstrate the universal appeal of his stories. Whether through contemporary novels, television series, or stage productions, Chaucer's ability to capture human experiences ensures that his work remains an integral part of cultural discourse. Geoffrey Chaucer was more than just a poet. He was a pioneer who transformed English literature. His ability to blend humor, social critique, and linguistic creativity set a precedent for future writers. Through this dissertation, an in-depth exploration of his life and work will reveal the true extent of his contributions to literature and society. By analyzing his literary masterpieces, linguistic innovations, and historical significance, this study aims to provide a clearer understanding of why Chaucer remains a central figure in the history of English literature. Geoffrey Chaucer's early life played a crucial role in shaping his literary career and intellectual pursuits. Born in the early 1340s, most likely around 1343, Chaucer belonged to a prosperous middle-class family in London. His father, John Chaucer, was a successful wine merchant, a trade that provided financial stability and connections with the upper echelons of society. These connections would later prove instrumental in Geoffrey Chaucer's rise within the royal court and his exposure to literature, culture, and politics. Although details about his childhood remain scarce, historical records suggest that his upbringing provided him with the educational and social foundations necessary for his later success as a poet and public servant. Chaucer's early years coincided with a transformative period in English history. The mid-14th century was marked by the 100 Years' War between England and France, economic shifts brought on by trade and commerce, and the devastating impact of the Black Death. These events shaped the world in which Chaucer grew up, influencing his perspectives on society and human nature, key themes that would later emerge in his poetry. His ability to observe and critique different social classes and power structures stemmed from his direct exposure to these changes from an early age. Education played a significant role in Chaucer's intellectual development. Although there is no definitive record of his schooling, scholars believe he may have attended St. Paul's Cathedral School in London, where he would have studied Latin, rhetoric, and classical literature. Exposure to the works of Virgil, Ovid, and Cicero would have influenced his later poetic style and storytelling techniques. His knowledge of languages, particularly French and Latin, also suggests that he received a well-rounded education that allowed him to engage with European literary traditions. In 1357, Chaucer's name first appears in historical records as a page in the household of Elizabeth de Burgh, the Countess of Ulster. This position introduced him to the aristocratic world and provided him with first-hand experience of courtly life. Serving as a page meant performing various duties, including attending to noble guests, running errands, and acquiring skills in etiquette and diplomacy. This early exposure to the nobility likely influenced Chaucer's understanding of chivalry, courtly love, and the complexities of medieval social structures, all of which became central themes in his later works. Chaucer's involvement in the royal household also granted him the opportunity to witness major historical events. One such event was the ongoing conflict between England and France. In 1359, during the reign of King Edward III, Chaucer joined the English army in the campaign against France, a pivotal moment in his early life. However, his military service was short-lived, as he was captured by the French during the Siege of Rheims in 1360. His capture, though unfortunate, demonstrated his growing importance in English society, as King Edward III personally contributed to his ransom. This act of royal intervention suggests that Chaucer had already gained favor within the court, a relationship that would shape his future career. Following his release, Chaucer continued his service in the royal household, embarking on diplomatic missions that took him across Europe. These travels exposed him to the rich literary traditions of France and Italy, where he encountered the works of prominent poets such as Guillaume de Machaut, Dante Alighieri, Giovanni Boccaccio, and Francesco Petrarch. These influences would later shape his own literary endeavors as he adapted and integrated various storytelling techniques into his poetry. His exposure to European courtly traditions and literary styles expanded his artistic vision and deepened his appreciation for narrative complexity. In addition to his literary pursuits, Chaucer's early career saw him involved in administration and governance. By the 1360s, he held various positions within the royal court, including roles related to customs and trade. These roles provided him with a unique perspective on the daily workings of government and commerce, further enriching his understanding of different social classes. His interactions with merchants, nobility, and commoners enabled him to craft diverse and realistic characters in the Canterbury Tales, as he had first-hand experience with the people he wrote about. Chaucer's marriage to Philippa Rowett, a lady-in-waiting to Queen Philippa of Hainaut, further solidified his position within the English court. Philippa came from an influential family, as her sister, Catherine Swynford, later married John of Gaunt, one of the most powerful figures in England. This connection to John of Gaunt, a key political player in the late 14th century, proved beneficial for Chaucer's career. It is believed that John of Gaunt served as Chaucer's patron, providing him with financial support and protection. Such patronage was essential for medieval poets, as it ensured stability and access to the resources necessary for literary production. By the late 1360s, Chaucer had established himself as a respected member of the royal household, a position that allowed him to engage in both political and literary pursuits. His role as a courtier, diplomat, and civil servant gave him insight into the workings of medieval England, experiences that he later transformed into literature. His exposure to different social classes, from the ruling elite to common merchants, allowed him to develop a nuanced understanding of human behavior, which became evident in his writing. Chaucer's early life laid the foundation for his literary and professional achievements. His education, courtly experiences, military service, and exposure to European literature all contributed to his development as a writer. His ability to navigate both aristocratic and common social spheres provided him with the material necessary to create some of the most memorable characters in English literature. Geoffrey Chaucer's career was not solely defined by his literary contributions, but also by his extensive public service, which placed him at the heart of English political and economic life. Throughout his lifetime, he served as a courtier, diplomat, and administrator, holding various prestigious positions under multiple English monarchs. His career in public service not only provided him with financial stability, but also influenced his literary works, exposing him to a broad spectrum of society and allowing him to observe the complexities of governance, trade, and law. These experiences ultimately enriched his writing, particularly in the Canterbury Tales, where he showcased his deep understanding of human nature and social structures. One of the earliest indications of Chaucer's involvement in public affairs came in the 1360s, when he was employed in the household of King Edward III. His service at court enabled him to build valuable connections with influential figures, and he was soon entrusted with diplomatic missions on behalf of the crown. One of his first significant diplomatic assignments took place in 1367, when he was sent to Flanders. Such missions required not only political acumen, but also linguistic skills and cultural awareness, qualities that Chaucer developed through his travels across Europe. His diplomatic duties continued into the 1370s, during which he was frequently dispatched to Italy on missions for the king. These journeys exposed him to the flourishing literary and intellectual culture of Italy, particularly the works of Dante, Petrarch, and Boccaccio. Scholars believe that his encounters with Italian literature had a profound influence on his own writing, particularly in the Canterbury Tales and Troilus and Chryside. The sophisticated narrative techniques and complex characterizations that defined Italian poetry became evident in Chaucer's works, marking a turning point in the evolution of English literature. Beyond diplomacy, Chaucer's career saw him take on significant administrative roles within the English government. In 1374, he was appointed Comptroller of the Customs for the Port of London, a position of considerable responsibility. This role placed him in charge of regulating trade and collecting taxes on goods entering and leaving England's most important commercial hub. His time as a customs official provided him with direct insight into the mercantile class and the economic workings of the medieval city, themes that would later surface in the Canterbury Tales. The vivid portrayal of merchants and tradespeople in his poetry reflects his first-hand knowledge of their ambitions, struggles, and interactions with the aristocracy. Chaucer's role as comptroller also signified his growing stature within the royal administration. The position required him to maintain detailed records and oversee financial transactions, tasks that demanded precision and reliability. Despite the demanding nature of his job, He continued to write during this period, demonstrating his ability to balance his governmental duties with his literary aspirations. The dual nature of his career as both a bureaucrat and a poet set him apart from many of his literary predecessors and contemporaries. By the 1380s, Chaucer's career took another turn as he became more deeply involved in legal and civic matters. In 1385, he was appointed Justice of the Peace for Kent, a role that granted him authority over local disputes and criminal cases. This experience likely influenced his understanding of the legal system, further informing the satirical portrayals of corruption and power in his poetry. The Canterbury Tales contains several characters, such as the Man of Law and the Summoner, who reflect Chaucer's keen observations of the legal profession and its moral complexities. In 1386, Chaucer's administrative career reached its peak when he was elected as a Member of Parliament for Kent. This prestigious appointment demonstrated the trust placed in him by the ruling elite and his growing influence in political affairs. As a parliamentarian, he would have been involved in discussions on taxation, war, and governance, further broadening his perspectives on national and international issues. However, political turmoil in England during this period, particularly the conflict between King Richard II and rival factions within the nobility, led to fluctuations in Chaucer's fortunes. By 1387, he had lost his position as comptroller, marking a period of financial difficulty and uncertainty in his life. Despite these setbacks, Chaucer remained closely connected to the royal court. In the 1390s, he received new appointments, including the role of Clerk of the King's Works, which placed him in charge of overseeing construction projects for the crown. This position required administrative expertise and leadership skills, as he was responsible for managing laborers and overseeing the maintenance of royal estates and structures. However, his tenure in this role was short-lived, and by 1391, he had stepped down, possibly due to the political instability of the time. In the final years of his career, Chaucer continued to receive financial support from the monarchy. In 1394, King Richard II granted him a pension, ensuring a measure of security in his later years. When Henry IV ascended the throne in 1399, Chaucer once again found favor, receiving additional financial grants. This royal patronage highlights the continued recognition of his service and contributions to both literature and governance. Chaucer's career in public service was as significant as his literary achievements. His experiences as a courtier, diplomat, customs official, and parliamentarian provided him with a unique vantage point from which to observe medieval society. The knowledge he gained through his government roles enriched his writing, allowing him to craft realistic, multidimensional characters and explore themes of power, corruption, and social hierarchy. His ability to navigate the world of politics and literature simultaneously speaks to his versatility and intellect, securing his place not only as a great poet, but also as a key figure in England's political and administrative history. Geoffrey Chaucer's literary genius did not emerge in isolation. His writing was shaped by a rich tapestry of influences, including classical antiquity, French courtly poetry, and the rising literary traditions of Italy. His early exposure to these traditions, combined with his own experiences in the English court and society, laid the foundation for his distinctive poetic style. Chaucer's ability to synthesize these diverse influences into a uniquely English literary voice set him apart from his contemporaries and established his enduring legacy. This chapter explores the key literary influences that shaped Chaucer's work and examines some of his earliest poetic compositions. One of the most significant influences on Chaucer was the French literary tradition, particularly the courtly poetry that flourished in the 13th and 14th centuries. As a young poet, Chaucer was deeply inspired by Lou Roman de la Rose, a highly popular allegorical poem attributed to Guillaume de Loris and Jean de Meun. This work, which explores themes of love, virtue, and philosophical inquiry, had a profound impact on Chaucer's early writing. His first major poem, The Book of the Duchess, circa 1368 to 1372, echoes the structure and themes of Lou Roman de la Rose, showcasing Chaucer's early engagement with French poetic conventions. The Book of the Duchess was written as an elegy for Blanche of Lancaster, the the late wife of John of Gaunt, Chaucer's patron. The poem follows a dream vision format, a common style in medieval literature, where the narrator encounters a grieving knight and listens to his sorrowful tale of lost love. Through its intricate wordplay, courtly themes, and allegorical elements, the poem reflects Chaucer's mastery of French poetic traditions. However, even in this early work, Chaucer's unique voice begins to emerge, particularly in his use of wit, irony, and psychological depth in character development. Beyond French influences, Chaucer was deeply impacted by classical literature, particularly the works of Roman poets such as Virgil, Ovid, and Boethius. His diplomatic travels to Italy in the 1370s introduced him to the intellectual currents of the Italian Renaissance, which further expanded his literary horizons. During his visits to Italy, Chaucer encountered the works of Dante Alighieri, Petrarch, and Giovanni Boccaccio, three writers who had a lasting impact on his style and thematic concerns. Among these Italian writers, Boccaccio's influence on Chaucer is particularly noteworthy. Boccaccio's Decameron, a collection of 100 stories framed within the context of a group of travelers telling tales to pass the time, provided Chaucer with a model for his own narrative structures. Though Chaucer did not directly translate the Decameron, he borrowed elements of its storytelling approach for the Canterbury Tales, especially its use of varied perspectives and a diverse cast of characters. Additionally, Boccaccio's Il Filostrato, a romantic poem about the doomed love of Troilus and Chryside, served as a direct source for Chaucer's later masterpiece, Troilus and Chryside. One of Chaucer's most introspective influences was the philosopher Boethius, whose work The Consolation of Philosophy was widely read during the medieval period. Boethius's themes of fate, fortune, and the transient nature of human happiness resonated deeply with Chaucer, appearing frequently in his poetry. Chaucer even translated The Consolation of Philosophy into English, demonstrating his intellectual engagement with philosophical ideas. These themes later found expression in Troilus and Chryside, where the fickleness of fortune plays a central role in the narrative's tragic progression. Another important early work of Chaucer is The House of Fame, circa 1379 to 1380, a dream vision poem that explores the nature of fame, the unreliability of human knowledge, and the power of storytelling. In this poem, Chaucer's narrator embarks on an allegorical journey to the Palace of Fame, encountering various figures from mythology and literature along the way. The poem's playful yet philosophical tone, along with its exploration of the role of poets and writers, reveals Chaucer's growing confidence in his craft. Though incomplete, The House of Fame marks an important step in his literary evolution, as it demonstrates his increasing willingness to experiment with form and theme. Chaucer's engagement with political and philosophical concerns is also evident in the Parliament of Fowls, circa 1380 to 1382, another dream vision poem that presents a humorous yet insightful debate on the nature of love and marriage. The poem is set in a fantastical realm where birds gather to choose their mates under the guidance of nature. Through witty dialogue and satirical commentary, Chaucer explores ideas of free will, social hierarchy, and the complexities of human relationships. This work, like the Book of the Duchess and the House of Fame, demonstrates Chaucer's skill in blending allegory with keen social observation. While Chaucer's early works reflect the influences of French, Italian, and classical literature, they also highlight his ability to transform these influences into something distinctly his own. His playful use of language, attention to character psychology, and sharp social commentary distinguish him from his predecessors. Even in his earliest poems, one can see the seeds of what would later blossom into the Canterbury Tales, a work that fully realized his artistic vision. Chaucer's literary development was shaped by a confluence of influences, including French courtly poetry, Italian humanism, and classical philosophy. His early works, from the Book of the Duchess to the House of Fame, showcase his evolving style and thematic preoccupations. These poems not only reflect his engagement with contemporary literary traditions, but also reveal his growing mastery of narrative structure, satire, and allegory. As Chaucer moved forward in his literary career, these early influences would continue to inform his most celebrated works, solidifying his reputation as one of the most innovative poets of his time. Among Geoffrey Chaucer's many literary achievements, Troilus and Chryside stands out as one of his most sophisticated and deeply philosophical works. Written in the mid to late 1380s, this lengthy poem marks a turning point in Chaucer's career, showcasing his mastery of narrative structure, psychological depth, and poetic form. While Chaucer is most widely known for the Canterbury Tales, Troilus and Chryside represents his most ambitious attempt at a sustained tragic narrative, demonstrating his ability to blend romance, history, and philosophical reflection. This chapter examines the significance of Troilus and Chryside, its sources, themes, and literary innovations, as well as its enduring influence on English literature. The story of Troilus and Chryside is set during the Trojan War and follows the doomed love affair between Troilus, a Trojan prince, and Chryside, the daughter of a Trojan priest who has defected to the Greek side. Unlike the more widely known versions of the Trojan War, such as Homer's Iliad, Chaucer's tale focuses on the personal and emotional aspects of the conflict rather than the grand heroics of battle. The narrative explores themes of love, fate, betrayal, and the impermanence of human happiness, making it one of the most poignant tragic romances in medieval literature. Chaucer's primary source for Troilus and Chryside was Giovanni Boccaccio's Il Filostrato, an Italian poem that also recounts the story of Troilus and his ill-fated love for Chryside. However, rather than simply translating or imitating Boccaccio's work, Chaucer expanded upon it significantly, introducing new psychological dimensions to the characters and deepening the philosophical themes. He also incorporated elements from Boethius's The Consolation of Philosophy, particularly the concept of fortune's unpredictability and the tension between human free will and destiny. These intellectual underpinnings give Chaucer's version of the tale a level of complexity absent in its Italian predecessor. One of Chaucer's most remarkable achievements in Troilus and Chryside is his characterization. Troilus, though initially portrayed as an idealized lover, undergoes significant psychological development throughout the poem. At the beginning, he is a proud and somewhat naive warrior who mocks those who fall in love. But once he himself is struck by Cupid's arrow, he becomes entirely devoted to Chryside. His transformation from a confident prince to a vulnerable and tormented lover is depicted with extraordinary realism, highlighting Chaucer's keen understanding of human emotions. Chryside, too, is one of Chaucer's most complex female characters. Unlike many medieval heroines who exist merely as passive objects of desire, Chryside is intelligent, cautious, and self-aware. She initially resists Troilus's advances, fearing the consequences of their relationship, but she ultimately surrenders to love. Her eventual betrayal of Troilus, when she is sent to the Greek camp in a political exchange and begins a new relationship with the Greek warrior Diomed, is not depicted as a simple act of treachery. Instead, Chaucer presents her as a woman caught in circumstances beyond her control, forced to navigate a world in which her agency is limited. This nuanced portrayal makes Chryside one of the most human and tragic figures in medieval literature. The theme of fate versus free will is central to Troilus and Chryside. Chaucer, influenced by Boethian philosophy, presents a world governed by the whims of fortune, where happiness is fleeting and human efforts to control destiny are ultimately futile. Troilus and Chryside believe that their love will endure forever, yet they are powerless against the larger forces of war, political necessity, and shifting allegiances. This sense of inevitability lends the poem a profound melancholy, as readers witness the characters' hopes gradually unravel. Stylistically, Troilus and Chryside is one of Chaucer's most accomplished works. Written in rhyme royal, a 7-line stanza form that he pioneered in English poetry, the poem achieves a musicality and elegance that elevate its emotional depth. Chaucer's use of direct address to the reader, his reflective asides, and his blending of humor with tragedy all contribute to the poem's unique tone. Unlike the episodic structure of the Canterbury Tales, Troilus and Chryside maintains a tightly woven narrative arc, making it one of the most cohesive and polished works of Chaucer's career. Although Troilus and Chryside is fundamentally a love story, it also serves as a commentary on the nature of human experience. Chaucer suggests that all worldly joys, including love, are transient and subject to change. The final book of the poem, in which Troilus's soul ascends to the heavens after his death, offers a stark contrast to the passionate intensity of the earlier books. This shift from personal tragedy to cosmic perspective reflects Chaucer's larger philosophical concerns, emphasizing the insignificance of human suffering in the grand scheme of the universe. The influence of Troilus and Chryside on English literature cannot be overstated. Its psychological realism, intricate character development, and sophisticated use of poetic form set a new standard for medieval narrative poetry. Later writers, including William Shakespeare, drew inspiration from Chaucer's treatment of the Troilus and Cressida legend. Shakespeare's Troilus and Cressida, though vastly different in tone, owes much to Chaucer's interpretation of the story, particularly in its portrayal of love as a force susceptible to manipulation and betrayal. Troilus and Chryside represents Chaucer at his most profound and reflective. It is a work that not only showcases his technical skill as a poet, but also his ability to explore deep philosophical and emotional themes. Unlike the Canterbury Tales, which is celebrated for its humor and diversity of voices, Troilus and Chryside stands as a unified and deeply moving meditation on love, loss, and fate. As one of the greatest tragic romances in English literature, it remains a testament to Chaucer's enduring genius and his ability to capture the complexities of the human condition. Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales is widely regarded as his magnum opus and one of the most significant works in the English literary tradition. Written during the later years of Chaucer's life, The Canterbury Tales stands as a landmark achievement in medieval literature, offering a vivid and multifaceted portrayal of 14th century English society. The collection of stories, presented through a diverse cast of characters, showcases Chaucer's remarkable ability to blend humor, satire, and a social critique. This chapter explores the structure, themes, and literary innovations of the Canterbury Tales, as well as its enduring legacy in English literature. At its core, The Canterbury Tales is a frame narrative, a literary structure in which a central story provides the setting for multiple smaller stories. Chaucer's frame story revolves around a group of pilgrims traveling to the shrine of St. Thomas Becket in Canterbury. To pass the time during their journey, they engage in a storytelling contest, with each pilgrim offering a tale that reflects their background, values, and worldview. This framework allows Chaucer to present a broad spectrum of medieval society, including nobles, clergy, merchants, and peasants, all of whom contribute to the collection's richness and variety. One of the most revolutionary aspects of the Canterbury Tales is its use of diverse narrative voices. Chaucer masterfully crafts each character's speech and storytelling style to match their social status and personality. The knight, for example, tells a noble and chivalric romance, while the miller, a crude and bawdy figure, delivers a comical and lewd tale. This technique not only highlights Chaucer's literary versatility, but also creates a lively and dynamic reading experience. Unlike earlier medieval literature, which often depicted society in rigid and idealized terms, the Canterbury Tales embraces complexity and contradiction, portraying individuals with both virtues and flaws. A central theme of the Canterbury Tales is the critique of social institutions, particularly the church. During Chaucer's time, the Catholic Church wielded immense power, but corruption among clergy members was widespread. Chaucer satirizes this hypocrisy through characters such as the pardoner and the summoner, who use their religious positions for personal gain. The pardoner, for instance, openly admits to deceiving people by selling false relics and indulgences, exposing the moral decay within the institution he represents. Through such portrayals, Chaucer provides a sharp commentary on the ethical failings of those who were meant to guide society spiritually. In addition to religious critique, The Canterbury Tales explores issues of gender and power dynamics, particularly in its depiction of women. The Wife of Bath, one of the most famous characters in the collection, challenges traditional notions of female submission and marital roles. Through her prologue and tale, she argues for female sovereignty in marriage, asserting her right to independence and sexual agency. Her boldness and wit make her one of the most compelling female figures in medieval literature. However, her character also reflects contemporary anxieties about women who defy societal expectations, illustrating the ongoing tension surrounding gender roles in Chaucer's time. Chaucer's engagement with themes of social class is another notable feature of the Canterbury Tales. The feudal system, which structured medieval society, was beginning to erode in the 14th century, and Chaucer captures this period of transition. The tales reveal tensions between the aristocracy, the rising merchant class, and the working poor. Characters such as the merchant, the franklin, and the plowman embody different aspects of the economic shifts occurring in Chaucer's England. Through their interactions and narratives, Chaucer subtly examines the changing social hierarchy and the aspirations of individuals seeking upward mobility. One of the most remarkable literary innovations of the Canterbury Tales is Chaucer's use of Middle English as a literary language. At the time, Latin and French dominated scholarly and literary writing, while English was considered the language of the common people. Chaucer's decision to write in English was groundbreaking, helping to elevate the language as a legitimate medium for serious literary expression. His poetic mastery, particularly his use of iambic pentameter and rhymed couplets, set a precedent for future English poets, influencing writers such as William Shakespeare and John Dryden. Despite its ambitious scope, the Canterbury Tales remains an unfinished work. Chaucer originally intended for each pilgrim to tell multiple tales, which would have resulted in a collection of over 100 stories. However, only 24 tales were completed before his death. This incomplete nature adds an element of mystery to the text, leaving readers to speculate about what might have been had Chaucer finished his vision. Some scholars believe that Chaucer's declining health or shifting political circumstances may have contributed to the work's unfinished state. The impact of the Canterbury Tales on English literature is immeasurable. Its vivid characterization, innovative narrative structure, and keen social insight established a new standard for storytelling. Chaucer's ability to blend comedy, tragedy, morality, and satire within a single work paved the way for later literary developments. Writers across centuries, from the Renaissance to modern times, have drawn inspiration from his techniques and thematic explorations. The collection's adaptability and timeless relevance continue to make it a subject of academic study and literary admiration. The Canterbury Tales represents the pinnacle of Chaucer's literary achievements. Through its diverse cast of characters, intricate storytelling, and incisive social commentary, the work captures the essence of medieval life while transcending its historical context. Chaucer's ability to combine entertainment with profound reflection ensures that the Canterbury Tales remains one of the most celebrated and studied works in English literature. More than just a collection of stories, it is a testament to the power of storytelling itself and the enduring human desire to share experiences, humor, and wisdom through narrative. One of Geoffrey Chaucer's greatest contributions to English literature lies in his innovative use of language and literary style. Writing at a time when Latin and French dominated literary and scholarly works, Chaucer's choice to compose in Middle English helped shape the development of English as a literary language. His poetic style, characterized by its rhythm, structure, and rhetorical flourishes, set a precedent for future English poets. This chapter explores the significance of Chaucer's language, his stylistic techniques, and how his literary choices contributed to the evolution of English literature. During the 14th century, English was undergoing a period of transition. The Norman conquest of 1066 had introduced French as the language of the aristocracy and government, while Latin remained the language of the church and education. English, spoken primarily by the common people, was considered inferior to these prestigious languages. Chaucer's decision to write the Canterbury Tales, Troilus and Chryside, and other major works in Middle English was groundbreaking, as it helped legitimize English as a language fit for serious literary expression. His influence contributed to the eventual decline of French in England and the rise of English as the dominant national language. One of Chaucer's most notable linguistic contributions was his role in shaping Middle English vocabulary and poetic diction. His extensive travels and exposure to different linguistic traditions allowed him to incorporate words from French, Latin, and Italian into his poetry. Many of these borrowed words became a permanent part of the English lexicon. By blending elements from different languages, Chaucer enriched English, making it more expressive and adaptable for literary purposes. His writing played a crucial role in expanding the range of English vocabulary and its ability to convey complex ideas. Chaucer's mastery of poetic form is another defining feature of his style. He pioneered the use of iambic pentameter, a metrical pattern that would later become the foundation of English poetry. Though not always as rigidly structured as later poets like Shakespeare, Chaucer's verse demonstrated a natural rhythm that enhanced the readability and musicality of his work. In the Canterbury Tales, he frequently employed rhymed couplets, a form that added both elegance and wit to his storytelling. His use of rhyme and meter set new standards for poetic composition in English. Beyond meter and rhyme, Chaucer's use of rhetorical devices added depth and artistry to his writing. He frequently employed irony, satire, and wordplay to critique society, particularly in his depictions of religious figures and social classes. The Pardoner, for instance, is a masterful example of Chaucer's use of irony. His character openly confesses to his deceitful practices while simultaneously attempting to sell indulgences to the audience. Such rhetorical complexity allowed Chaucer to engage with contemporary social issues while entertaining his readers. Characterization is another area where Chaucer's literary style excelled. Unlike many of his predecessors, who depicted characters in broad, idealized strokes, Chaucer infused his figures with psychological depth and individuality. Each pilgrim in the Canterbury Tales has a distinct voice, personality, and way of speaking, which reflects their background and social standing. The Wife of Bath's frank and humorous speech contrasts sharply with the knight's refined and chivalric storytelling, demonstrating Chaucer's skill in creating believable and dynamic characters. His ability to capture human nature with such nuance set a new standard for character development in literature. Chaucer also experimented with different narrative techniques, often inserting himself into his works as a fictionalized narrator. In the Canterbury Tales, the character of Chaucer the Pilgrim serves as a naive and sometimes bumbling observer, allowing for a playful detachment between the author and the storytelling. This technique enabled Chaucer to present controversial or satirical material without directly implicating himself. His ability to shift between different narrative perspectives added complexity to his storytelling, influencing later writers who sought to explore multiple viewpoints within a single work. Another distinctive feature of Chaucer's literary style is his use of humor and comedy. While much of medieval literature focused on moral instruction and religious themes, Chaucer introduced a more playful and irreverent tone in many of his works. His comedic tales, such as The Miller's Tale and The Reeve's Tale, use bawdy humor, exaggerated characters, and absurd situations to entertain the reader. However, even in his comedic works, Chaucer's humor often carries deeper social commentary, exposing the hypocrisy and folly of different social groups. This blending of humor and critique made his writing both engaging and thought-provoking. In addition to his comedic talents, Chaucer displayed a strong philosophical and moral sensibility in his works. Influenced by thinkers such as Boethius and Augustine, he often explored themes of fate, fortune, and the transient nature of human existence. In Troilus and Chryside, for instance, the protagonist's tragic downfall serves as a meditation on the unpredictability of life and the limitations of human control. Chaucer's philosophical reflections give his works a depth that extends beyond mere storytelling, offering readers insights into fundamental human concerns. Chaucer's language and literary style played a transformative role in the development of English literature. His use of Middle English helped establish it as a legitimate literary language, while his innovations in meter, characterization, and narrative technique set new artistic standards. His ability to blend humor, satire, philosophy, and poetic elegance made his works timeless, ensuring their continued influence on subsequent generations of writers. Through his stylistic achievements, Chaucer not only captured the essence of his own era, but also laid the groundwork for the future of English poetry and storytelling. Geoffrey Chaucer's contributions to English literature extend far beyond his own lifetime. As one of the first writers to establish English as a literary language, Chaucer's influence on subsequent poets, playwrights, and authors has been profound and enduring. His innovative use of characterization, narrative structure, and poetic form set new standards for literary excellence, shaping the development of English poetry and storytelling for centuries to come. This chapter explores Chaucer's lasting impact on literature, his role in inspiring later writers, and the ways in which his works continue to be studied and appreciated today. One of Chaucer's most significant contributions to English literature is his role in legitimizing Middle English as a language of serious artistic expression. Before Chaucer, most scholarly and literary works were written in Latin or French, reflecting the dominance of those languages in England's intellectual and aristocratic circles. By choosing to write in Middle English, Chaucer demonstrated that English was not only suitable for poetry, but also capable of expressing complex ideas, emotions, and humor. This shift paved the way for later writers, such as William Langland and John Lydgate, to further develop English literature. Chaucer's influence is particularly evident in the works of later poets who adopted and refined the poetic techniques he pioneered. One of the most notable examples is William Shakespeare, who, like Chaucer, used iambic pentameter and rhyme to create rhythmically sophisticated verse. Shakespeare's ability to blend comedy and tragedy, his skill in crafting dynamic characters, and his use of multiple narrative perspectives all owe a debt to Chaucer's storytelling techniques. Troilus and Cressida, one of Shakespeare's plays, draws directly from Troilus and Chryside, demonstrating Chaucer's lasting impact on Renaissance drama. The 15th century poet John Lydgate, a devoted admirer of Chaucer, sought to continue his literary legacy. Lydgate's works, including The Fall of Princes and The Siege of Thebes, show a clear attempt to emulate Chaucer's style, particularly in their use of rhyme royal and their interest in historical and moral themes. Similarly, Thomas Hakluyt, another poet of the same period, openly expressed his reverence for Chaucer, referring to him as the father of English poetry. Hakluyt's regiment of princes reflects Chaucer's influence in its moral and philosophical tone, though it lacks the same level of narrative complexity. Chaucer's impact extended beyond poetry to the realm of storytelling and prose fiction. The tradition of framed narratives, popularized by the Canterbury Tales, became a recurring structure in later literature. Writers such as Giovanni Boccaccio and, later, Miguel de Cervantes and Geoffrey Chaucer were instrumental in the development of the novel form. The idea of multiple narrators, each with their own unique perspective, would later be seen in works such as the Decameron, Don Quixote, and even modern literary experiments like William Faulkner's As I Lay Dying. In addition to inspiring English writers, Chaucer's work was also widely read and adapted across Europe. His engagement with classical sources, as well as his familiarity with French and Italian literary traditions, made his works accessible to a broader audience. Italian Renaissance writers, such as Petrarch and Boccaccio, though influential on Chaucer himself, also found echoes of their storytelling techniques in Chaucer's works. His ability to blend English storytelling traditions with continental influences contributed to a growing literary culture that transcended national boundaries. Chaucer's portrayal of human nature and society also had a lasting impact on literature. His ability to create realistic, multidimensional characters influenced later authors who sought to depict the complexities of human experience. The satirical and humorous elements of the Canterbury Tales paved the way for writers such as Jonathan Swift and Henry Fielding, whose works incorporate similar blends of wit and social critique. The idea that literature could serve both an entertaining and a critical function, a hallmark of Chaucer's writing, became a defining characteristic of English literature. In the modern era, Chaucer remains a subject of extensive literary study. Scholars analyze his works not only for their literary brilliance, but also for their historical and cultural significance. His depictions of medieval life provide valuable insights into the customs, values, and social tensions of 14th century England. Chaucer's exploration of themes such as class, gender, and morality continues to resonate with contemporary audiences, making his works relevant even in today's literary landscape. Chaucer's influence extends beyond academic study into popular culture. His stories and characters have been adapted into films, plays, and modern retellings, ensuring that his legacy remains alive in various artistic forms. The Knight's Tale, for example, was loosely adapted into the 2001 film A Knight's Tale, starring Heath Ledger. Contemporary authors have also drawn inspiration from Chaucer, reimagining his tales for modern audiences while preserving their thematic richness and narrative ingenuity. Geoffrey Chaucer's influence on English literature is unparalleled. By elevating Middle English as a literary language, pioneering new poetic forms, and creating some of the most memorable characters in literary history, he laid the foundation for the development of English storytelling. His works continue to inspire writers, scholars, and artists, ensuring that his legacy remains a vital part of the literary tradition. Through his innovations in language, style, and narrative, Chaucer secured his place as one of the most important figures in the history of English literature. Few medieval writers have left as lasting a legacy as Geoffrey Chaucer. Centuries after his death, his works continue to be studied, admired, and adapted in various forms of literature and media. Chaucer's ability to capture the essence of human nature, his pioneering use of the English language, and his innovative approach to storytelling have ensured his place as one of the foundational figures in English literature. This chapter examines the ways in which Chaucer's legacy has endured across time, how scholars and literary critics have engaged with his works, and why his writings remain relevant to modern audiences. One of the most significant aspects of Chaucer's legacy is his role as the father of English poetry. Before Chaucer, literature in England was primarily composed in Latin or Anglo-Norman French, making English a secondary language for literary expression. By writing in Middle English, Chaucer not only legitimized the language, but also set a precedent for future writers. His works demonstrated that English could be as expressive and sophisticated as Latin or French, ultimately influencing the trajectory of English literature for centuries to come. Chaucer's impact on literary style and narrative structure has also been profound. His use of the frame narrative in the Canterbury Tales introduced a storytelling technique that has been widely emulated. The idea of multiple characters telling stories from their unique perspectives influenced later literary traditions, including the development of the novel. Writers such as Miguel de Cervantes, Geoffrey Chaucer, and even contemporary authors like Geoffrey Eugenides have drawn inspiration from Chaucer's narrative structure, demonstrating its enduring appeal. Moreover, Chaucer's works remain relevant due to their exploration of universal themes. His keen observations on social hierarchy, corruption, gender roles, and human folly resonate across different historical periods. The satire of the Canterbury Tales, for example, remains particularly striking in its critique of religious and political institutions. The partner, who profits from selling false indulgences, is a character whose moral corruption is easily recognizable in modern discussions of power and greed. By highlighting the hypocrisies of his time, Chaucer created works that continue to reflect contemporary societal issues. In the academic world, Chaucer's writings have become an essential part of literary studies. His influence is evident in the extensive body of scholarship dedicated to analyzing his themes, characters, and linguistic innovations. Scholars have examined Chaucer's works through various critical lenses, including feminist theory, historical analysis, and linguistic study. His ability to blend humor, irony, and deep philosophical inquiry makes his works rich with meaning, offering multiple avenues for interpretation and discussion. Chaucer's influence is also evident in education. His works, particularly the Canterbury Tales, are frequently included in university and high school curricula, exposing new generations of students to medieval literature. While Middle English can be challenging for modern readers, Chaucer's stories remain engaging due to their humor, vivid characterization, and storytelling brilliance. Modern translations and adaptations have helped make his works more accessible, ensuring that students continue to engage with his literary contributions. Beyond academia, Chaucer's works have inspired numerous artistic and cultural adaptations. His tales have been reimagined in plays, films, and even modern novels. Some adaptations remain faithful to his original storytelling style, while others take creative liberties to make the themes more relatable to contemporary audiences. This ongoing process of reinterpretation speaks to the timeless nature of Chaucer's storytelling and its ability to transcend historical and cultural boundaries. One reason for Chaucer's continued relevance is his profound understanding of human nature. His characters, whether noble or flawed, reflect the complexities of real people. The wife of Bath, for example, is a strong-willed, independent woman who challenges societal norms, making her one of the most compelling female characters in pre-modern literature. Her struggles and assertions of agency still resonate with readers today, particularly in discussions about gender and power. Additionally, Chaucer's humor and wit make his works enjoyable even for modern audiences. His ability to blend satire, absurdity, and clever wordplay has influenced later comedic traditions. Writers such as Jonathan Swift and Oscar Wilde, known for their sharp social critiques, owe a literary debt to Chaucer's mastery of satire. Even in contemporary comedy, the idea of using humor to expose human folly and institutional corruption remains a powerful narrative tool, reinforcing Chaucer's influence on modern storytelling. Chaucer's legacy endures because his works continue to be relevant, thought-provoking, and artistically significant. His influence on the English language, narrative structure, and literary themes ensures that he remains a cornerstone of literary study. Whether in academia, literature, or popular culture, Chaucer's contributions continue to shape the way stories are told and understood. His ability to capture the complexities of human nature and society cements his place as one of the greatest literary figures of all time. Geoffrey Chaucer's position as one of the most influential figures in English literature is undeniable. His works, characterized by their mastery of language, depth of characterization, and engagement with societal issues, continue to resonate with readers and scholars alike. This dissertation has explored various facets of Chaucer's life, works, and impact, ultimately demonstrating that his contributions were not only transformative in his time, but continue to shape the trajectory of English literature. Chaucer's legacy, both as a poet and a storyteller, transcends the medieval period, and his work remains as relevant today as it was in the 14th century. One of the central arguments in this dissertation has been the role that Chaucer played in the development of the English language. Before Chaucer, Latin and French were the dominant languages in scholarly and artistic circles, relegating English to a less prestigious status. Chaucer's decision to write in Middle English was a revolutionary act, legitimizing the language as a vehicle for sophisticated literary expression. His mastery of the vernacular laid the foundation for future generations of writers, establishing English as a literary language in its own right. His influence on the English language is still felt today, as his works introduced a wealth of vocabulary and stylistic innovations that continue to enrich modern English. Furthermore, Chaucer's contribution to the poetic traditions of England cannot be overstated. He is often credited with pioneering the use of iambic pentameter and rhyme royal, both of which became central to the structure of English poetry. By using these metrical forms in works like the Canterbury Tales and Troilus and Chryside, Chaucer established new standards for poetic composition that were emulated by later writers, including William Shakespeare and John Milton. Chaucer's verse demonstrated the musicality and flexibility of the English language, influencing generations of poets who sought to imitate or build upon his style. Another critical aspect of Chaucer's significance lies in his innovative narrative techniques. The Canterbury Tales, with its framed narrative and diverse range of characters, is often regarded as one of the first works to fully embrace the potential of storytelling as a communal activity. The structure of the text, with each pilgrim telling their own story, reflects a multiplicity of voices and perspectives that was revolutionary at the time. This technique of embedding stories within stories, often with varying tones and styles, would influence later writers, including Boccaccio, Cervantes, and even modern authors who experiment with similar narrative complexity. Chaucer's use of multiple voices allowed him to explore the complexities of human experience from a variety of angles, making his work both richly layered and deeply reflective of the diverse nature of society. In addition to his technical innovations, Chaucer's works continue to captivate readers because of their engagement with timeless and universal themes. His exploration of social hierarchies, gender roles, morality, and human nature provides insights into the human condition that remain relevant across time. The satirical nature of the Canterbury Tales, which critiques the hypocrisy and corruption of religious and political institutions, continues to resonate in the context of contemporary discussions about power, greed, and social justice. Characters such as the partner and the wife of Bath embody the contradictions and complexities of human behavior, reflecting the way in which individuals navigate societal expectations while simultaneously revealing their flaws and desires. Chaucer's nuanced portrayals of human nature continue to offer rich material for reflection and analysis, ensuring that his works retain their power to engage readers. Moreover, Chaucer's works are notable for their ability to blend humor with profound social and philosophical commentary. The use of comedy in his writing, often intertwined with biting satire, allows him to explore serious themes in a way that is both entertaining and thought-provoking. The comedic elements in the Canterbury Tales provide a sense of levity, but they also invite readers to critically examine the world around them. Chaucer's ability to balance humor with moral reflection contributes to the enduring appeal of his writing. His wit, irony, and playful manipulation of language continue to captivate modern audiences, demonstrating the lasting power of his comedic talents. Chaucer's influence on English literature extends far beyond the medieval period. As the first major poet to write in English, he set the stage for the literary developments that would follow. His work directly influenced later poets such as John Milton, John Lydgate, and William Langland, who looked to Chaucer as both a model and an inspiration. His influence can also be traced in the works of Renaissance writers, such as Shakespeare, who adopted Chaucerian themes and narrative techniques. Even in the modern era, writers such as T.S. Eliot and W.H. Auden have acknowledged Chaucer's lasting impact on their own poetic endeavors. Chaucer's ability to weave complex narratives, engage with social issues, and experiment with form has made him a touchstone for generations of writers. In addition to inspiring poets, Chaucer's influence extends to the realm of popular culture. His works have been adapted into numerous plays, films, and even operas. The stories from the Canterbury Tales have been reimagined in various artistic forms, with modern adaptations often placing Chaucer's characters and themes in contemporary settings. This process of adaptation speaks to the continued relevance of Chaucer's work, as his stories continue to capture the imagination of audiences across different media. The continued popularity of Chaucer's work in contemporary culture ensures that his legacy remains vibrant and accessible. While much has been written about Chaucer's literary achievements, it is important to recognize the ongoing relevance of his work in modern scholarship. Chaucer's writings remain central to the study of medieval literature, and new critical approaches continue to emerge, bringing fresh perspectives to his work. Feminist scholars, for example, have examined Chaucer's treatment of gender and sexuality, while post-colonial critics have explored the ways in which his works engage with issues of race and identity. Chaucer's works provide a rich source of material for contemporary debates and discussions, ensuring their continued vitality in the academic world. Geoffrey Chaucer's significance in the literary canon cannot be overstated. His works not only represent a pivotal moment in the development of English literature, but they also continue to provide rich material for analysis and interpretation. Chaucer's mastery of language, his innovative use of narrative forms, and his engagement with timeless themes have ensured his place as one of the most influential writers in the English literary tradition. His legacy continues to shape the way we understand both medieval literature and the enduring power of storytelling itself.